It's almost 9 o'clock. This is News and Views on Salam Media. And next, we're going to be talking with someone at the PAC. And that, of course, is you, Jaki Stone. You are the Secretary for Publicity and Information at the PAC. And, of course, the elections are around the corner. We will be talking to all political parties about their manifesto so that we can make informed choices regarding where to place our cross in the upcoming elections. A very good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Jaki, let's look at your Manifesto 2019 for the national and provincial elections. And I know there were a few very, very important points that were raised that jumps out at me. There was the land question, there was education, housing, economy, and employment. These are all really important issues. They touch our hearts, they touch our lives. We as South African citizens need these issues dealt with effectively so that we can get health care, good quality health care. We can get, address the youth unemployment, and the list goes on. That obviously was in 2019. What does the 2024 manifesto look like?
Look, the issues that bedevil South African society seem to be very clear to most people and most citizens in the country right now, because they feel the pinch at an everyday level, with load shedding, with lack of delivery of services, with poor quality work done by government, and basically the collapse of state resources via corruption. These things are very clear, we think. But we are now focusing in our 2024 manifesto at what we think is the core problem. And this is the foundation of South Africa's new political dispensation as we know it from the Constitution in 1996. We are saying that at the core of the human rights culture has been a raft of issues which are not possible to put into effect, including the issue of land in the section that deals with property rights. And these issues are really the poison pill in the negotiations that took place between the African National Congress and the Clerk's regime. Those things are a hamstring to delivery of services. We believe that we were given a sham of a constitution that made us look at the Bill of Rights and other things, whilst at the same time denying people the right to the God-given territorial rights, and to allow a sit-in of Western culture, which in most instances contradicts the indigenous knowledge systems and the indigenous way of life. So it is not only robbing people of their rights that we are raising, we are re-emphasizing what we raised in the 1959 Pan-Africanist Manifesto on the land question. Because we think the land question is basically the national question. How do we define ourselves as a nation? And why is it that there are still these differences between the people of the land? And we think that the resolutions or the agreement between the ANC and the National Party actually reinstated apartheid as we knew it. That's why people live in categories, in slots, as colors and so on. We think everyone of us, should not be afraid to say they're Africans, because we're living on the African land. But all of us must be completely committed to of a debate on settler colonialism and how we dismantle and break it up. Because settler colonialism is bedeviling society, and the good example is what is happening in Palestine, in occupied Palestine. The same thing is still here in a different way, of course, in Southern Africa. It's a singular problem for the people of Namibia, of Zimbabwe, of South Africa, and even of Kenya. The concept of settler colonialism has not been discussed and resolved. So it brings in divisions, inequality, and still holds hostility between these divisions because everyone works for their own. It's kit and kin politics. And in the PAC, we want to get rid of them.
So,
That's in
Jaki,
a nutshell what we're saying.
all right. I see that the PAC stands with Palestine. Good on you. The PAC showing their human side regarding these type of issues regarding settler colonialism. Just as a matter of interest, I'd like to share something with you. In a discussion yesterday with Herman Mashaba, and I asked him about his party's stance on the support of Palestine. And he indicated, including Musi Maimani, whom I spoke with last week, suggested that their focus is on the issues in South Africa. We have very many issues in South Africa that needs to be addressed. Our economy, our system, there are lots of things that are broken in South Africa, and they are saying that they don't want to focus on global issues, settler colonialism being one of those, the atrocities that's being perpetrated in Palestine. They would rather focus their energy in fixing local matters that are totally broken. You seem to have at PAC a different view. Why is that?
Now, I know the concept of local as lekker and all that, but it doesn't apply in politics. You need to have an international approach to your own conditions. This is what Sobuk and some of our founder leaders have said we should do, because what is happening on a global level would affect you. And in these instances, we're talking about the uneven distribution of power in the world. That affects geopolitics. And that is why in some instances there have been proxy wars in local areas. So we have to understand how international politics works and our role in it. I don't think we in the PAC are shying away from looking at our instances, our circumstances inside South Africa and focusing on them. We're not shying away from those type of areas, but we're making the links, and we need to understand that without those links, we will be lost. And the issue of Palestine, and I keep repeating it because while this is the one good thing that we think government did, the state of South Africa did by raising the issue at the International Court of Justice, because it means we are contributing towards the betterment of the human condition. What happens to you in Palestine as human beings should affect us in a small area in Cape Town. So we think that humanity is a universal concept, and we cannot really justify closing our eyes or ignoring issues of abuse of human rights by the powerful countries like the Israeli regime and its association with Americans. We have to condemn that sort of thing.
Let's come back closer to home now and the upcoming elections, Jaki. And I know the land question is a very big question in the country. And I know the EFF has been pushing the land question for a very, very long time. The RET faction within the ANC, there's a big push towards land without compensation. Are you of a similar view? And if and when the land question is properly addressed and correctly addressed, how do you believe it's going to serve the South African people? What's going to be different and better for us as South Africans going forward?
A discussion and honest dialogue, a national discourse on the issue of land. Our differences with the others who are raising the issue of land is nuanced. It's really something that we need to discuss and understand each other on. Because, for instance, expropriation of land is not something that we're happy with. Because you can only expropriate, when you expropriate, you are making the owners of that property you are expropriating from legal. And we don't think there's any legality in the way in which the land invasion historically took place and how the traders moved into the country and took over land. They did this at the expense of the indigenous African people. We need to have a good understanding of those laws. And also the fact that South Africa as a country was made up in laws of other countries. Like the Union of South Africa is an idea that comes from the Westminster government, the British government, in giving the Boers some kind of independence. All those things for us mean that the African people were isolated and not given any chance. There has been a history of slavery. People have been brought into South Africa as slaves from Asia, who some came as indentured labor and all that. We know the history. But what I'm saying is we should be able to discuss the issue of land contextually in a democratic manner and not allow it to be resolved by the courts. So that you have to produce a piece of paper, a title deed, when the land was taken by blood. So we need to discuss these nuanced approaches, because our approach in the PAC is that there must be a restoration of land to the people. We're also saying land is an asset. Yes? It's a state asset. It's a national asset. And we cannot shy away from that discussion, because it is the one that makes the difference between the rich and the poor. And historically, it has always been used. For instance, in the Cape, I mean, if you had land, you had the right to vote in the early years, whether you are African or not. So we've had these issues, and we think we should discuss them properly.
So, still sticking with the land issue, and you mentioned the Western Cape, we know what is playing out there with the DA servicing the affluent communities to the point where it is becoming so attractive for the rest of the South Africans that young professionals are choosing to go and semigrate to the Western Cape because of service delivery to their areas. And yet, on the other hand, the Cape Flats and the townships, Guguleto, etc., they're not being serviced at all. How is the PAC going to be addressing that very burning issue?
But the issue of provinces and also needs to be debated, discussed, and maybe even reallocated.
And let me hasten to add here, Jaki, I'm using the Western Cape as an example, but I think it's being replicated all around the country, because the more affluent suburbs and vicinities get all of the services because they can afford to pay for it, and the poorest of the poor continue to suffer.
Yes, I was just saying that there's anomalies which are created from asymmetrical distribution of wealth in the provinces, more on a federal basis than anything else. So that on itself is what is making the migration of professionals and others to places like the Western Cape, where they can afford, they can live a cushy life. We want a unitary state so that the distribution of wealth must be everywhere. But we cannot allow the ghettoization of places like Langa, the Cape Flats, and all that, because this grounds down people into a life of poverty forever. So people must be able to live in spaces, mixed area spaces, where we can live with each other without necessarily grounding down people into low levels of poverty, the bottom of the pit, you know, there are some people who are thinking along those lines.
Okay, my final question then is there have been talks by other political parties as well, suggesting that you have mixed areas where you have your $1 million mansions next to a sub-economic type of housing. Of course, people object. The affluent people are objecting to that because they believe it's going to impact on the value of their property. That's another debate altogether. But is the PAC, because I haven't heard any other political party mentioning this in their manifesto, and that is taxing the super rich or the uber rich, taxing them because they can afford to be taxed so that monies can be available for effective service delivery for the working class and the poorest of the poor. Why are they being protected from taxes and they have this protection of wealth tax? That's not right.
Yes, the rich are setting up political parties that they can control in order to protect their wealth. Because, I mean, we need a wealth fund where all of us contribute so that we can be able to uplift our communities, especially communities of the poor. But the rich cannot have their cake, they cannot eat their cake and have it.
They want their cake and they want to eat it.
Yes, yes. So we need to work this out in such a way that everybody is accommodated. It doesn't mean the rich will stop being rich. We all want to live a fulfilled life, and the riches of the world must be distributed evenly.
Jaki, I'm going to have to let you go, but your one final short, sharp answer. Why should people vote for the PAC in the upcoming elections?
Well, the PAC has gone through rough circumstances over a long period. It's trustworthy. And it has fought corruption within itself, and it has survived over the years. So our commitment to the people cannot be doubted. So people have to vote for the PAC.
Jaki Stone, PAC Secretary for Publicity and Information. It's been lovely talking with you this morning. Till the next time, stay safe, keep strong. You need lots and lots of energy for the upcoming elections. Thank you indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you.
17 after 9 o'clock. We're a bit late with the news this morning, but we are going to take a break and then go straight into the news bulletin of this Tuesday morning. Thereafter, we'll be joined by Dawie Ruet. He's going to give us expectations of the 2024 budget speech, and we'll be wrapping up by talking with the COO at Cotlands, and that, of course, is Monica Stach.